Right, hello everyone. So today we've got a Milwaukee Hackzall. It's a fuel version. I purchased this one off the internet, off eBay. It doesn't work, as you can see here. So I've had the battery on there. I've got the light at the front working, so I'm hoping the control is okay. This is hopefully something mechanical or some cables have been here. So I'm going to get this open. I've not had one of these before. Quite surprised how big it was actually. I thought it'd be a little bit smaller. But as I'm doing this, I can see it's been opened many times before. That's a random Phillips screw in there. I've got screws missing on here. It's just not in a good state at all. And as I go through, there's a number of screws missing actually on the housing for the motor as well. All sorts. But you can see there, very obviously, two cables that are just disconnected from the back of the motor from the control board. So that should be the obvious first thing to look at. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get it out of the housing as I have here, try and get it in a good position so I can start scratching away at the terminals so that I've got something to make a good connection to. So we can see they easily fit back. I don't need to get any extra wire here. I can use the same amount. I can just strip the ends and they'll still fit, luckily. It's not too much that's snapped off. It's right at both ends. So I'm guessing it's the vibration where they just become brittle and snapped. So I'm getting the motor housing off there, the black shroud. There's a number of screws, as I mentioned, missing from this. So a bit concerned that I think there's been a lot of people, at least one person, having a look at this. Who knows what they've done. But I'm going to get it out, have a look at what I can here, what's been touched, what hasn't. I'm hoping they just looked at this and thought it was too much of a problem and they stopped. So get that off, put it back into normal speed here so you can see a little bit better. But as I do that, you can see the little board at the bottom there, the bottom of the screen. That's where those two are connected. So I'm going to get the field off here. Get rid of the screws first. They haven't taken these screws out, luckily, so I'm feeling a bit more positive that there's nothing missing as I go forward. So get that off the field. I've got a little earth cable there. If I take that one off as well from the rest of the body, I should be able to start working on this. Right, so now that's off, that gives me a little bit more freedom, so I can separate that, move that part out of the way so I can just concentrate on this. It's going to be a little bit fiddly. There's a coating on the bottom of the board that I'm going to have to scratch off. So I'll get my scalpel and I'll try and scratch as much of that off as I can at the bottom to make the solder visible, so I can attempt then to remelt that solder and pull the snapped cable out the bottom. Now once I've done that, and you'll see it's going to be a long process, but once I've done that, I'll have a nice hole that'll connect straight to the board. That'll give me a nice clean connection then back to the board, back to the motor, through the controller there. So that should fix that problem that we're having. Hopefully you saw at the beginning the light was working at the front still, so I'm fairly confident it's the only problem. The trigger seems to be working. I couldn't see any obvious issues with the switch. So this is the main problem, but this is going to be very fiddly. So I'm going to spend some time now cutting off the protective coating, trying to get that solder out in the open so that I can have a go at it and get it out. And while I'm doing that, I'll just take this opportunity. This is my first real long video showing a repair. You may have noticed I've been growing this 13 or 14 videos now, mostly shorts, but this is the sort of thing we do on this channel. I'll be getting these spares and repairs tools, fixing them up, hopefully giving them a new life. Some of them unfortunately just won't be able to be fixed, but things like this, it's very simple. It's just a connectors that come apart, and this is a tool that I've wanted for a while, so it's a good opportunity actually. And I've got this fairly cheaply online. It was about £40, and I know these are a few £100 brand new. It's a fuel model, brushless model, so hopefully this is quite beneficial. This is a simple one as well. If you're a DIYer, there's very simply two cables here disconnected from a board. So if you've got the tools here to get the old cable out, the old solder out, This is a perfect one for you to try if you can find things like this. Some of the multi-tools, Milwaukee ones, do have a very similar fault all the time. They have a cable that disconnects from the motor. That isn't as easy, but if it breaks at the other end, that is just as easy as this one, really. It's reconnecting those wires, and this is very simple electronics. So you can see here that I've stripped those two cables back, making a fresh area that I can then get straight through that hole that I've made in both sides. So there's one here at the bottom and there's one in the centre. But I've taken both those cables, freshened them up, screwed them round so that they can fit in this gap. And you'll see in a moment here. This is me just finishing off, getting the last little bits out of this hole. I do end up using a small drill bit as well, just to by hand though, but just to go into the hole to make sure I've got all the last little bits out, and you'll see that in a second. So I'm just trying to scratch these bits out. It's a very frustrating process, but we're almost there. That's why I've sped this bit up as well. You don't want to watch this at slow speed. This is probably bad enough, but hopefully we are nearly there now. Okay, so here I'm just attaching those wires again. So the two wires into those two holes. So trying to get this one in, I've re-bored the hole, if you like. Got it through. I'm just trying to connect the edges up to the connectors on the little circuit board. I say I'm having some difficulties with this soldering iron, but I'm just making sure those connectors touch. At least I can prove then that this was the actual fault. I can fix both of those. As long as they're both making a connection and we press the switch and it works, then we know that's what it is. Okay, so I'm just finalising these holes. It is a little bit fiddly, like I've said a few times. Just got a little drill bit in here, a little metal drill bit, tiny one, just to get the last bits of the old cable out so that the new connector end, if you like, can fit through easily. That'll make this a much nicer connection. I can get solder around it and it'll touch all the sides on the circuit board. That's the goal, so we get the best connection possible. So very gently here, because if I go too far I could break it. It's just a small plastic board, so I'm trying not to put a lot of pressure on, but I'm trying to get those last little bits of metal filings basically out of both of those. So if I test it now with the cable here, I twist the end, trying to get it as thin as I possibly can to get it through these holes, and then I can fold it over and then I can solder it in place then. So my fringe is in the way. Apologies, it's not a fancy set of wires. Right, that should be good enough now, so I'll get this back together, speed it up a little bit so that it doesn't bore you to death, but we'll get this out of the way. We'll grab the housing, we'll start putting it back into place. See, a bit backwards there. There we go. So the problem with all those screws missing as well is it's going to shake around. There's going to be a bit of vibration, so I think I'm going to have to get a new screw pack for a lot of these parts, just to make sure that there's no unnecessary movement in this thing. What I don't want is more cables, or those cables to come apart again at the joints. So we'll get this in, get the trigger in correctly there. The cable routing is going to be quite important as well underneath. I'll need to get the shroud back on in a second, but I'm just going to get this light in at the front first, make sure it's all threaded in there, so I can see it's definitely going to fit when I get it back together. Everything's in the right place, that looks good, and then we'll get this shroud back on. So there's supposed to be 6 screws on here, but I only had 2, so yeah, we're going to get this, clear a bit of excess off the edge of that just while I get this on. as I've lifted it as well, I can see it's coming away a little bit. So I did say it's a temporary one until I get the flux. But what I want is actually to do a good test of it. So I'm trying to make this as good as I can with this holder that I've got here. So let's try and get that connected, and then we'll get the shroud on and give it a quick test. Okay, here we go. So you can see there, both sides done. Get a couple of screws in that I've got. There you go. Get one each side just so I've got a little bit of strength in there, so it doesn't come apart when it starts vibrating. And then we'll get this back in as it goes there. Okay, the battery connector there, get the change lever in, try and get that connected to the switch so that we can change it just for another test. Okay, got that done. Right, we get the housing on, and then a couple of screws, and then we're good to go. So there's a mystery spring, so I'm going to have to get the diagram out and see exactly where that went, but what I'll do is just get this on, give it a quick blast, and hopefully we're good. So 1, 2. Okay, get that battery on, and boom, it works. Brilliant.